Hello, I'm Sharon Benjamin. Welcome to Leafless, Not Lifeless. Did you know that when the leaves fall from the trees, they're not just falling because it's autumn? They're actually falling because it's a means of protecting the trees. So I got this from Encyclopedia Britannica. So if the leaves did not fall from the trees, there would be a problem. You see, evergreen trees have wax and resin on their leaves, and it protects them. But deciduous trees don't have that option. The leaves are so thin. And if they did not fall, water expands when it freezes. The water would expand and damage the leaf cells, which would prevent photosynthesis. So they have to fall. Now, when they fall, they don't just fall for naught. They actually end up helping growth and development for other plants. And that's just the way it has happened with my guests. So it's not just for you, not just what you think you might have lost. So have you ever found yourself in a situation that from the outside, it looked leafless? However, as time was going on, you were actually growing and developing. And so is the case with my next guest. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, Deacon. How are you?
Good.
Welcome, everybody.
So nice to have you. Listen, Carrie's story might have been like millions of other young ladies. However, there were some differences, and you're going to find out. There might have been some inequities in the family, but why am I asking her about her experience? Because she did something different. She developed, when it looked as if there were no leaves, growth and development was actually taking place. She lived with the lack of male covering for many years in the home, became a teenage mother twice over, was an honor student, graduated from college, undergrad and graduate degree, and is now working in a major pharmaceutical as a project manager. Welcome, Carrie. I love this. I love
Hi,
this.
Deacon. How are you?
Good. Why don't we start out? Tell us a little bit about
Sure,
yourself.
sure. Well, I think you got a good piece of it, a good snapshot of it. I am one of 11 children. I am the fifth. People treat me like I'm the first, but I am the fifth oldest. 9 girls, 2 boys.
Wow.
You mentioned I was a teen mom. I was a teen mom with my daughter. I was a little older with my son. So I was a single mom though at that time, but I was older at the time when I had him. And now I actually am married. My husband and I, Vanny and I, work together in ministry. We work together in the home, and we also work together with a small business. And so, as you can hear, we have a pretty full life. Uh,
Yes.
we we have a blended family of 4 adult children, and we're up to about 8 now grandchildren
Wow.
between us. So
Wow.
that's kind of like a little snapshot
Yes,
of,
yes.
of who I am. Many people.
Yes, yes. So, Carrie, tell us, what would you say was perhaps your greatest obstacle or some of the obstacles as you were growing up?
I would say, looking back, I would say an obstacle that I encountered would have been just the sheer number of people in my family. 11, and I'm the fifth. And probably by the time I was growing up in elementary school, I say, my parents were still married, but by the time I was a teen, they were not married. So I think that, again, looking back, that wasn't to me an obstacle because quite frankly, until somebody told me something was an obstacle, I really think it's funny. I didn't think it was an obstacle. And I'm not saying that that's good or that's bad because I think that some things we do need to process as an obstacle. But I didn't notice obstacles until somebody told me it was one.
So, so
Quite
what,
quite frankly.
so what you saw seemed like this is just the way it is, and this is the
I
way it,
think I believe so, and probably because that was what was around me, if that makes sense. Now, some years later, um, after high school, going to college, my eyes were open and I saw some things that I hadn't seen before, intact families,
yes,
people who owned their own homes.
yes.
Uh, I just saw a black middle class that I did not grow up with. Now, later in the area, I could see that environment existed where I was. I grew up in South Jersey and Atlantic
Yes.
City. So I know that it was there, but it wasn't until later. I wasn't raised seeing that.
Okay.
Others in my family were.
Okay. So was there any one person or situation in your life that gave you the trigger to say, okay, I want to do something different?
Well, I would say yes. I mean, when I graduated from high school, I was in probably the top 10 of my class. And I it's not a coincidence. The principal called me in, like he called all of the top percentile of the students in and said, well, what are you doing? Where are you going to school? Hmm? Said, I'm not going to school anywhere. No, nobody told me anything about going to school. And it was like, what do you mean?
So
Nobody
you
told
had
you.
not, so going to college had not crossed your mind.
Had not crossed my mind, had never been discussed. Even though I was an excellent student. I was a top student, and I knew I was a top student because that was my passion from kindergarten, school. It was, you know, there's nothing here in this house. The refrigerator's empty. There's nothing going on in here. It's a lot of action at school. That's where I want to be.
So was
So
that
I
kind of an
always
escapism? Was that kind of an
well, escape, alternative. I just knew I'd rather be there, rain, sleet, or snow, and you couldn't tell me I wasn't going.
interesting? So the principal calls you in, and what happens as a result?
So it was a flurry of activity in terms of what happened. Next thing I know, I was getting called into the office. I was given these papers. So that may have been May or June. You know, by August, I was gone. I was in the summer program at it was Trenton State College at the time. It's the College of New Jersey. And so, it just all happened real fast. It was like a real flurry. And, it was a tough time because I didn't take, my daughter with me. I didn't take Keisha with me. And so you know, and I stayed all 4 years. So my family and her family, my dad, her dad, that's who helped in those early years to take care of her. But everything was like a blur, you know. And I don't think it should have been a blur. I think I should have been told. I think my mom should have been told, or somebody in my family, because sometimes it's not always your parents that will tell. Maybe they don't have the capacity to
Yes,
understand, but someone should have been told. And I always tell people that's a life-changing thing for me. Uh,
yes,
you're your child's advocate when it comes to education.
yes,
Don't count on the guidance counselor.
yes. So how was it for you? You said the principal called you in. What about the guidance counselor? Because they are in those places to actually help students navigate.
Nope. My guidance counselor, I have no recollection of my guidance counselor calling me periodically throughout my being in high school, intermittently asking me anything. I have no recollection. So, as far as I'm concerned, I had no relationship with the guidance counselor. I know from uh, junior high school, maybe to my first 2 years of high school, every teacher that was influential to me, and I can name them, and she is not on the list.
Interesting. Carrie, how did you keep yourself motivated to keep pressing forward? So you have a young daughter, you are in an environment that you had not seen, had not experienced. How did you keep yourself motivated?
I just think I I really just think it was just an innate thing in me. I think my curiosity. you, and my need to understand and learn is probably what motivated me. And the other thing that probably motivated me was verbally, nonverbal body language telling me what I can't do.
And you take that as a challenge.
I took it as a challenge, and I'm like, yeah, okay, watch. That's
Yes.
probably like still like that today.
Yes. Probably because of where you are. So, um, of all the experiences on your road, would you say that your most pivotal moment was this? This was the driving force, this moment, the principal, and you're getting there and seeing other students and already having that drive.
I think that, and I can't dismiss, having a child at an early age either. I mean,
Yes.
at an early age with as many people in my family, you worked, you that's what you did. You went to school and you worked. And if you had a child, you really worked, and so I believe that just sense of responsibility was, developed early and just stuck with me.
So you worked while you were in school as well?
Oh, absolutely. I never went took a class unless in the summer I could figure out how I could work. I never took a college course unless I figured out how I could have independent study, work. There was never a moment where I wasn't doing both.
So that really got you through. So how was it with your relationship with your daughter? So you
Well,
were different
it was,
family members
yeah,
were helping.
yeah, yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult because, I mean, years later I found that out, because, she wasn't raised with her mother. She was raised with my family, my mother. And as much as, she liked that, years later she explained to me, what she missed and things like that. But then kind of, I believe, made, if you ask her now, made peace with why it was like that, and how it turned out that way. That's what I think. You see her enough, and
Yes,
she
yes.
she's pretty open. She's pretty open, and she would say that. I think to some extent it's kind of hard and sad for someone because you can see everybody else with their parents and stuff, and so by the time they get out of those formative years, you have to like just rebuild the relationship, But she has her own family now, and she I think she sees things a little differently now.
Yes, understands the responsibilities that you had.
Understands some of the choices
Yes,
that
yes.
had to be made for the long-term welfare that may have, not seemed right at the time, but for the long term, um, just to benefit the family.
Yes, Carrie, how do you think your the way you have become and how you got started, you decided to go off to college and decided to make some different decisions, some that you had not seen.
Mhm.
How has that impacted your family?
Well, I don't think that's the only thing that has impacted my family. I may have been the first one not to graduate from school, but maybe from high school, but maybe to graduate from college. Maybe the first to graduate and have a graduate degree. So I know educationally they were probably influenced, but I also think they're influenced too because, I'm going on 25 years of being saved. I did not grow up in a Christian home. Um, I'm a member of the Collegial International Church, and that's the only church I've ever been a member of. And it's like kind of funny, people say things, and I'm like, I'll be like, I'll look at man, I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about because that's all I knew.
Yes,
So some of the things that I would hear, but I believe that being saved probably to me is probably one of the most influential things that my family sees. That's what, and Manny and I married.
yes,
I told you I'm one of 11, 9 girls, 2 boys. Two of my sisters are deceased, but marriages did not last. I have one sister who's been married for over 30 years, you know, and that's the only one that we have seen, in with the exception of Manny and I. which will be 20 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So Carrie, right now, through this travel, as I said, your experience or your life as a teen mom is not much different than, we could go out and we could find more than we could count on our hands. However, you did something different with it. So right now you are a project manager. That's where you are now. But tell us about some of the other places where you've influenced.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny. We'll start like right in that high school, college, those off years. I mean, I worked all kind of places. I worked for agents, I worked for two guys, I worked for department stores. I worked in a coffee shop on the night shift, on a like it was like the strip. So you see one thing in the morning and you see another thing in the afternoon because that's when the construction was taking place with all the casinos. So that's when I
Yes,
worked.
yes.
But then, my first career was I was an Internal Revenue Service agent. When I was in Trenton State College, I trained and was picked to be part of a program to get more revenue agents of color into the agency. So I was a revenue agent. And once I did that, I worked three different casinos, three different stages. One was an opening, like it didn't exist, so I was part of that. One was open and had an expansion, and then I worked in another that will go nameless, the last that was open,
Okay.
a lot of marketing and flash. And then
Yes.
I relocated to Central New Jersey, and that's when I became part of the pharma industry.
Eh,
First for Bristol Myers Squibb.
yes.
I took a stint where I had like a break, and with Novo Nordisk, I'm coming up on 15 years with Novo Nordisk. So I've had three careers.
Interesting. Interesting that, and I hope that the viewers and listeners will hear your story and know that it is true and that it is possible. I like to have these stories where people are, people don't have to stay where they start.
Mm, mm.
And your story is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, like I said, uh, you evolve, and if you again, I can't dismiss what being saved has to me
Yes, yes,
done for me. I just didn't have that awareness, and that awakening. And I hear people say all kinds of things, but I that really is an important foundation for me,
yes,
that we are saved and that
right.
you can change. You
Yes,
know, things can change, and you can see things in a different way, and your family can be different. And the legacy can be different. Like
yes,
the future, and
yes,
so I can't underestimate that because few people know what I do. They just know sometimes I'm not around because I'm on a plane.
yes,
Used to be, right?
yes,
Or they would know certain different things. But as wonderful as that career is, that's not who I am. That's not all who I am.
yes,
I'm a whole bunch of other people besides that.
yes. So the Lord has made a difference,
Oh, for sure.
made all the difference, made
For
all the difference.
I
Carrie,
think that's important. So you
it's
know that
very important.
you're more than what you do from 9 to 5.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And know your base and know your reason and know your why. That's awesome. Carrie, would you please share with us some parting words of
Sure.
encouragement for any young ladies, any people who might feel that they might have been dealt a hand that they can't play?
Well, I'm here to tell you, and I have more stories. This is just one story that we're on here talking,
Yes,
about today. I got plenty of stories. I got plenty of. I've had plenty of heartache, plenty of sadness, grief, and not just grief from loss of people, but loss of dreams and things that I wanted for my family. But I'm still here. and you know, you can make up your mind to do, what the right thing is for you, because the right thing for you may not be what it is for me.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I do think that there are role models. I had never seen people that had been married for that long until I came to the cathedral. Yeah,
Yes.
I had never seen people that said, "Oh no, I've worked here for 30 years." I had never seen that before. And so you can change. It matters who you're with.
Makes a
It
good
matters
point.
who you're listening to. It matters what you're looking at and paying attention to. It really does. And so my parting words are, watch out who you have around you. Watch out who you listen to. Um, and the other thing I want to say is peer pressure is not just for children. There are a lot of adults that experience peer pressure. And
Yes.
I say be careful. I'm a pretty private person. I have a pretty tight circle. And I really do pay attention to who is in that circle.
Right.
And I pay attention to what the priorities are for my family.
Some excellent parting words. You can go forward. You can move forward. Pay attention to the people in your circle. You control that.
That's
And think about whether or not the people in your circle are helping you move forward or causing you to stand still.
true. I always say I hope that I am a breath of fresh air when I show up, and
Yes.
people don't cringe when they see me.
Right.
It's important to leave something for someone, do something outside of yourself for others, and I try to live that.
And that goes right with what I mentioned earlier. So while it might have looked like a leafless situation, you were still growing and developing, and even now still having a positive impact because of your influences. So thank you so much, Carrie, for being with me here on Leafless, Not Lifeless. And thank you for listening and participating in the conversation. Listen, if you have a story, have you had a situation where you might have looked from the outside, it might have looked leafless, but you were growing and developing? Let me hear from you. Send me a note, leafless, not lifeless at gmail.com. Leafless, not lifeless at gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, Carrie, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you for
here.
having me. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. And listen, I'm looking forward to you, all of the listeners, all of the viewers, to meet me back here the next time for Leafless, Not Lifeless. Have a great one.
Bye now.